Come on again, let's give God some praise. If you have your scriptures, would you open up to me with the book of Genesis, chapter 45. Again, we're still in our series, The Audacity. We're walking the journey. I pray that this series has helped you in your process and learning the life required to not only to walk in ministry, but to live effectively in the life of Christ. So you cannot journey through God if you don't have the audacity to live for Him. And that's why we're teaching and training on this in this time, in this season, even though it's that Lenten season, the Easter season that is coming up, which is the audacity of sacrifice, which we are excited to see on that Easter morn. Genesis chapter 45, verse 1 says, Then Joseph could not restrain himself before all those who stood by him, and he cried out, Make everyone go out from me. So no one stood with him while Joseph made himself known to his brothers, and he wept aloud. And the Egyptians and the house of Pharaoh had heard it. Then Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. Does not my father still live? But his brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed in his presence. And Joseph said to his brothers, Please come near to me. So they came near. Then he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. But now do not be afraid, do not therefore be grieved or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. For these 2 years of famine has been in the land, and there are still 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. And God sent me before you to preserve a posterity for you in the earth and to save your lives by great deliverance. So now it was not you who sent me here, but God. And he has made me a father to Pharaoh and lord of all of his house and a ruler throughout the land of Egypt. I want to talk to you today. Again, we're still in our series, The Audacity. And I want to share with you today the audacity of forgiveness. The audacity of forgiveness. When we're dealing with the audacity of forgiveness, we must understand there's one thing that cannot be defined very easily. By definition, forgiveness is the intentional and voluntary process by which a victim or one that's been offended undergoes a change in their feelings and attitudes regarding an offense, letting go of the negative emotions such as vengefulness with an increased ability to wish the offender well. See, forgiveness is not just forgiving. Forgiveness is that entire process of not only letting go of what had happened to you, but wishing that the one that did it to you is well and their life has increased in spite of what they've done to you. You're not wishing anything negative against them. You're not wishing anything harmful for them. It's a process of it. Anytime we always talk that anytime that they add NESS, nest to something, it's not a moment of situation, it's a process. So you can forgive, which is a moment of time, but forgiveness is a process. You can't just walk in forgiveness until you have the willingness to forgive. So when you see forgiveness, you're seeking a continual process, because you can look at that person on Monday and say, I forgive you. But on Tuesday, you remember what they've done, and now you're struggling to maintain that forgiveness. So the forgiveness is not something that God seeks for us to do in a moment. He seeks for us to maintain. So when we're talking about the audacity of forgiveness, we're not talking about a moment. We're talking about a process. So when we're discussing this, we must consider that this process is one that is taken with intentional change. Okay, I want you to be clear. It's not something accidental. You intentionally want something different. You intentionally want to wish well. You intentionally want to let go and release, because you begin to realize that the longer that you hold on to whatever offended you, whatever what came against you, is going to cause you not to live beyond that moment. I used to teach years ago that you can only stay a victim as long as you don't get off of the bed. And what that meant was that if someone had done you wrong or touched you in a wrong way on that bed, you will have memories and scars of it. But you will only stay a victim if you never get up off of that bed and begin to walk a life away from the moment that the offense occurred. But if you keep carrying the offense without releasing the offense, releasing the results of the offense, releasing the pain that was attached, releasing the memories, releasing the person that did it, then you carry yourselves in a life of bondage that the person that did it had no intentions of having, because to them it was a moment of affliction, but yet you've carried a lifetime of pain. So forgiveness is not something that can just happen in a moment. Forgiveness is a process that not only must you walk in the moment of saying, yes, I forgive, but live that forgiveness from that moment on. It's a process. Tell somebody it's a process.
It's a process.
See, forgiveness, again, is not something that happens easily. It must go through the difficult paths of change. So when one forgives, they are not doing it for the sake of the offender. When one forgives, they're not doing it for the sake of the one that offended them. When they forgive, they're doing it for themselves. Yes, so what I'm saying is that forgiveness is more selfish than selfless. But it has to be. Because forgiveness releases you from the bondage. Forgiveness frees you from the pain. Forgiveness frees you from the circumstances. Forgiveness frees you for what happened. It has nothing to do with the offender other than the fact that you have to forgive the offender. But at the end of the day, you can only stay a victim as long as you decide to be a victim. You can only stay a victim as long as you decide to be a victim. See, I knew this was going to be hard today. We talked about forgiveness. People don't like that because they want to characterize what they've gone through as such a tragedy that they use it for the rest of their lives. But even the Jews got to a point of realizing that the Holocaust is over. They went through it twice. They was enslaved in Egypt and then they was in the Holocaust. So if they could get over it, why are we still trying to look for a 40-acre and a mule? I'm going to leave that alone. They took their suffering and made an economy over it. Oh, y'all ain't hearing me.
Yes, they did.
They took their suffering and built businesses with it. They took their pain. See, y'all. See. We still want people to give us something because we weren't supposed to be here. But I don't recall them wanting to go in the fire. I don't recall any of them saying, my name is Shadrach, Meshach, or Abednego. They was like, oh, daddy, look, a tent. And next thing you know, boom, they gassed them. I don't recall them willingly to go in there. I don't recall them wanting to be marked with numbers on their arms. But they took what they went through and they said, we're not going to allow it to make us victims. We're going to be victorious from it, and we're going to live by it, and we're going to live beyond it. Even though we are Holocaust victims, we are still business owners. Y'all not hearing me?
All right.
So it had to take a moment of them to walk in the process of forgiveness in order for them to overcome it. So if we're looking at the audacity of forgiveness, and we've realized, as we've said through this whole series, that the audacity is the willingness to take risks. We've said that, amen? Y'all with me? So if we take it from the actual psychological the definition, which is extensive, that we would say that the audacity of forgiveness should be defined as the willingness to take the risk to reflect the change in feelings and attitudes regarding an offense and letting go of negative emotions with an increased ability to wish the offender well. That's the audacity of offense if we want to stay in the classroom. But if we want to just take it with us and it's something that we can reflect on as we driving home, with the audacity of forgiveness is the willingness to take the risk to just give someone a break. The willingness to take the risk to forgive someone that you don't want to forgive. The willingness to take risk of letting go of something that you feel you should never let go of. Listen, let me tell you something. I will never, ever downplay what someone has gone through, and that's not what I'm saying today. What I'm saying is I'm trying to give people freedom from the affliction. I'm trying to give people freedom from the affliction, because as long as you keep carrying the affliction as a weight that limits you, then you'll never move beyond it, and then it takes over your life, and at some point in time, you never live again. You never live again. So again, the simplest interpretation is the audacity of forgiveness can be defined as the willingness to take risks to forgive, the audacity to let go, the audacity to release all the emotions attached to the offense and the offender. The audacity to love again so that you can live again. Dwayne Wade has an outstanding wife, an incredible woman who's a victor, who has lived a victorious life in spite of being raped early on in her career. And people would ask me, well, what happened? They said, I learned to live and overcome it. I didn't allow it to label me. I didn't allow it to be a stigma on me. I didn't allow it to be me. It was a moment of my life. It was an occurrence that happened, no matter how tragic it was, but I wasn't going to let it take over my life. See, victory doesn't come from giving in. Victory comes from letting go. Victory comes from taking those steps beyond it and saying, in spite of what that person is, not every person is that person. Not every black man is a murderer. Not every person is a rapist. Not every person is a thief. At some point in time, that one occurrence may give you a jaded look at life. But if it gives you a look that is so crooked where everyone is that person, then the only thing you're doing is categorizing yourself as someone that will never live again. Even Christ came up out of the grave after being crucified unjustly. But yet we want to stay in the grave and smell like we live. We want to stay in the midst of it. You offended me. You afflicted me. You 40 years old and still carrying the pain. Wow. Then you try to be involved with someone else and you never give them a fair chance because every time you see them, you see the other one. And the problem is the one you're with now is the best thing you've ever been with, but you never gave them a chance because you couldn't let go of who you saw before. I used to tell people, if you're getting married again, don't bring your divorce into your marriage. Uh-oh. Because what the first did to you, the second shouldn't. The reason people remarry the same person, I said it, is because they can never see past the original. So what happens is they end up getting connected with someone else who may look, act, walk, talk like the first one and figure, oh, it'll be better this time. But it's not. What happened is you just jumped out of the frying pan and stayed there because you got with the same thing a second time. You got offended the second time in the way you got offended the first time and said, why do I keep doing this? Because you never let go of what the first one did. You can be like Angela Bassett and burn the car and the clothes. That's not forgiveness, that's anger. At the end of the day, you're not winning. No. What point are you proving? So you in jail for burning his clothes. What he did you? He cheated on me. But you spent more time in jail than he is. Wow. So at the point, what happened? You made yourself a bigger victim. I'm saying these things because forgiveness is a process. It's not a moment of time. It is a process. Forgive is when you say, I forgive. But forgiveness is what you do after with the forgiveness. You can't say, I forgive and then stab him to death. You can't say, I forgive and call the police on him. Forgiveness is that process of, you see, you people have requested and wonder why folks will go before the cameras and say, we're going to court on this situation, but we don't want them to have any jail time. But they committed a crime against you, but we forgave them. We understand what was going on there. Most people are like, no, let them go under the, no. There was a report, I was talking about it the other day, where you saw a camera, a video camera, a police camera, taping of a young man they was chasing. They didn't even have their gun drawn. They was chasing him. He turned around the corner of a van and turned around. He had his gun drawn, and a police officer pulled his gun and shot him on camera and killed him. Now, this was justified. We all saw it. It was on camera. But the family of the young man says, we're suing the police department for killing our child. No. Right. No. But they went to court and the judge said, you don't have a case. Threw it out. Why? Because it was justified. The officer was willing to arrest, but the young man said, I didn't want that. I wanted more. But the family says, it don't matter. We're going to keep fighting. See, they haven't learned to forgive. Forgiveness is realizing that when someone is having to do what they have to do, it wasn't because they felt like it. They was pushed into it. If someone pulls a gun on you and you have a gun, what you going to do? You're going to try to defend yourself. It is what it is. But forgiveness is when people have an understanding that their child predicated this. Their child precipitated this. Their child instigated this. It wasn't the officer's responsibility. The officer was trying to arrest him. That was it. We have too many people trying to litigate forgiveness. That's another day. I'll leave it alone. Joseph faced this moment in this passage, but with clarity of thought and reflection. Joseph, after going through the pit, spending this time with Potiphar, finding himself in prison, now in Pharaoh's house, he now is facing everything that gone up until a moment that now he must face his brothers.
My Lord.
His brothers who have come to seek help during a famine. A famine that he predicted 2 years ago. Work has been done. He has established himself here. And the last person he expected to see was his brothers. Wasn't even in his mindset. Wasn't even his thoughts. He figured he'd never see him again. Neither did they expect to see him. But here he is with all the power and authority of Egypt. God's promise on his life. And coming around the corner, standing before him, are the ones that put him in the pit. Now, he is now facing the one thing that will always be in the way of the peace that should come with his success. Forgiveness. Yeah, he's second in command in Egypt. He's the most powerful person in there next to Pharaoh. He's got a fine wife and a bunch of kids. He's doing everything right. But he don't have any peace. Because he doesn't have his family. He has created a family, but he doesn't have his family. He doesn't have his father and his son, his father and his brothers, his mother. He doesn't have that extended family, but he can't celebrate. He can't share with them, with his new family, his wife and kids, what his family had done. He can't share it because he doesn't want them to know that the only reason that they're married right now is because his family tried to kill him. How do you explain that? Oh yeah, girl, I'm with you now because yeah, they tried to take me out. What kind of response, what kind of opinion would it create in his wife over his family? Right. If he doesn't forgive, he's going to create a generation of people that's going to be against his family without understanding.
Wow.
Keeps reminding of, I don't know, Color Purple can be preached forever. I keep reeling, you told Harpo beat me. Because the mentality that one had, they expected to go the other direction. And she said, all my life I had to fight. Don't play. And you know, if you're a weak woman, it's one thing. But don't tell him to do that to me. I'll beat the bricks off him. She says, I loves me some Harpo. But I'll kill him if he tries. I said, yes, sir. But what it did was it woke Celie up. Because Celie didn't realize that you mean you can be strong. Yes. Oh, I'm going to leave that alone. You got to have peace about it. See, while you may acquire great success, if you don't have forgiveness, you don't have peace. Peace is greater than success. You cannot have peace until you forgive. People have done, said, tried to do multiple horrific and unfair things to you, some with victory, some without. But even the failed attempts created resentment. The fact that you said it like that Negro tried me. You walked around, you madder than you are the ones that succeeded. They done tried me. I can't believe this. But this resentment can fuel your progress, but it will never soothe your pain. Not until you're willing to forgive will you ever reach a place of peace. So there's some things I want to share with you this morning. We're talking about the audacity of forgiveness, right? We're speaking on this from a very important position because I want you to understand this. First thing we must realize, the audacity of forgiveness never needs an audience. Oh, God. The audacity of forgiveness never needs an audience. Verse 1 says that Joseph could not restrain himself before all those who stood by him and made himself known to his brothers. While he made himself known to his brothers. And he wept aloud, and the Egyptians in the house of Pharaoh heard it. It says, so no one stood with him while Joseph made himself known to his brothers. He emptied the room. He said, get out. He told everyone in there except his brothers, leave. He told anyone in there that could have been a witness to leave. He told anyone in there could have heard this to leave. He told anyone in there that could have repeated what they saw to leave. because he did not want them to witness what was happening. The one thing is clear in this moment is that Joseph is ready to forgive his brothers. But it took a process. Matter of fact, let me say it the correct way. It took two processes for this to happen. Now, I know most of you say, wait a minute, we only read about one process. No, you read about two. It's two processes. Watch. It is difficult to identify another moment, but this one is clear that the evidence in this struggle to restrain his emotions, that showed that he was ready to do something that he had been carrying for so long. He was ready to forgive. His feelings did not come so easy. It took a process within the process. So in order for this to happen, we have to look back. Joseph, upon seeing his brothers again, initiated what we call a plan of redemption for them. We noticed that when he first saw them, he didn't identify himself to them. He didn't tell them who he was. He allowed them to get the grain and everything, but he gave them a series of tests. He kept leaving things in their bags that they didn't own to give the impression that they were stealing from Egypt. And every time that he was doing this and their response to it, it was drawing them closer and closer to their understanding who God was. Even up to a point where they began, when they said aloud that this is happening because of what we've done to our brother. We unjustly did things to him. And look, now our younger brother is suffering because of it. And we're hearing this, and Joseph is hearing this. And at the moment that he heard them proclaim that they had done him wrong, he was now ready to forgive. Why? Because it says, the scripture tells us that Joseph went and found a place to weep. When he heard what they had said, he went off away from others to find some way to cry. That was his release. That wasn't forgiveness. That was his release. I should have done the audacity of release, but I didn't do that. I might add that in there later on. But this was his moment of forgiveness was coming because he had to release. You can't forgive until you release. Oh, yeah. You can't forgive until you release. Yeah, I'm going to have to do release. I'm going to have to do it. I can see it now. But what he did was that he realized that the moment of change had happened in them because he's seen it. He heard it in their voice. That all this time that he was gone, they weren't celebrating his death. They were regretting what they had done. But he had to hear it for himself. And at that moment, it welled up in him too great that he could no longer be angry at what they had done to him because he realized that they really didn't. He realized they regretted everything they had done. And they've been suffering more than he ever did. See, you thought you was going through the worst of it. You didn't go through the worst of it. The one that offended you did. Because they have to not only live down what they had done to you, but they have to hear it, think about, and wondering what they know the pains they afflicted. And they got to carry it on and on and on and on. So again, from Joseph's character, we've determined that his acts were not vindictive. He had a redemptive goal in mind. From the results, we can sense what that goal was. And perhaps assume that Joseph was guided in his actions by God. So Joseph's gains caused his brothers to examine their conscience and openly admit their earlier sin. Not even realizing that the one that has created this situation was their brother. He hears them. He hears their response. He hears how genuine and authentic that they were with their expression. And he finds a place to cry. The pain of everything he'd gone through, seeing them standing before him was overwhelming to him. But he gathered himself and continued his process. Joseph was clear that his brothers had to go through this process just as he went through one. The brothers had to go through a process of redemption, just like Joseph had to go through a process of fulfillment. When we think that we're going through it by ourselves and that the offender has gone off to live a different life, we don't realize that they are going through a process of regret the entire moments that we're going through a process of living with what they've done. And forgiveness to some thinks that it frees the offender up, but it really frees up the victim. Because when the victim can forgive, they're saying, no matter what you did to me, I'm not carrying it with me. Now, if you want to hold on to it, that's on you. But I'm going to hold on to his hand, God's unchanging hand. You can hold on to the offense all you want, but I'm holding on to God. That's why I said forgiveness, watch this, forgiveness doesn't need to be a performance or a public speech. I said it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to have an audience. It doesn't need to be a performance or a public speech. You don't have to have a press conference to forgive someone. You don't have to stand before the church and call out what you've gone through and tell them, the whole world, what that person did, and then say, but I forgive them. Because what you've done is you didn't forgive them. You actually drawn attention to them. I'm just thanking God that I can stand here and just thank Billy, even though he touched me and did me wrong and raped me and beat me, but I forgive him for what he's done. And Billy's standing there like, what? How's that forgiveness? Because now the entire church has a different opinion of Billy. That's not forgiveness. That's vindication. Forgiveness is that you're saying that God, I thank you because I can let them go. Whoever they were that did what they did to me. I know what they are. I know who they are. But God, I forgive them and love you. God, I love you enough that I have the audacity to forgive them in a way that I don't even have to put their name out there. They know who they are. And you may run across them after service and give them a hug and quietly say, I forgive you, and move on. And people would never know that that was the one that had done the offense. But when you got to sit there and put them in public and blast them and put their name out there, you're not forgiving. You're still holding true. And then saying, but the Lord got me. The Lord don't have you. Because if the Lord sent you to forgive, you will forgive in the way that God told you to. But expressing it in that manner is wrong. If you was going to do that, you should have filed charges. Oh, y'all ain't hearing me. If you can't forgive, if you carried this and never went to the police, then trying to arrest them in public, trying to convict them in the court of public opinion is no better. You have to get to a point, if you know that you want to live beyond and say, I forgive them. I've been offended. I've been accosted in many ways. There's things that's happened to me in my life I never speak on. Why? Because I forgave them when they did it. And when they come back and they want to apologize, I say, what you apologizing for? I forgave you the day it happened. Amen. So you waited all this time to finally get the strength to get up an apology? Okay, I'll thank you for this free meal. It's good food. But you wasted your time apologizing, because what would you hope me to say? Oh, all is well? All has been forgiven. You the one walking around carrying this, not me. So that's the one thing I like about forgiveness. If you forgive them on day one, you'll get a free meal at some point. Yeah, I said it. Because they're going to come back and they're going to offer you something. Come on, let's go to Ruth Chris. Praise the Lord. I'll sit there and I'll buy the most expensive steak on the plate. And I eat that bad boy and say, hey, listen, hey, you apologizing for what? I forgave you then. It's some good food. You got the check, right? Hey, man. I ain't being bitter. I ain't being vindictive. I'm enjoying the meal. Even Christ communed with Judas. Oh, hello. All right. So I'm going to sit there and I'm going to enjoy myself. So I thank God for it. Because what happened? Joseph had been violated by his brothers, but he forgave them over a meal. See, y'all missed that. Y'all thought I was just throwing that up in the air. He broke bread with them. He told them to give the largest portion to the youngest brother. He sat them at the table, and then he revealed himself to them and said, it is I, Joseph, at a meal. See. But he made sure that there was nobody in the room. Why? Because he didn't need an audience. That's why I said the audacity of forgiveness says you don't need an audience to forgive. You don't need to put it out there publicly. You don't need to reveal it to everyone. Because if it was one servant in that room that had heard him say this, mind you, he was what? Second in command in Egypt. If he had made any indication that the people in that room had put him in a pit, or had tried to kill him at some point in time, they would have never made it out of Egypt. That's right. So in the process of forgiving, you're protecting. Y'all ain't hearing me. All right. You're protecting them from being victimized like they victimized you. I was watching one of these, I don't know why. I was watching because everything else there was nothing on. It was just this. I ended up watching BET. Lord, forgive me. After my intelligence level went down too many points, I succumbed to this, and I won't even speak the name. But evidently there was a character on there that was, they were promiscuous, let's just say that. And they got caught up with someone of well-known on campus, and they hooked up. And somebody caught them and recorded it, or one of the cameras on, the surveillance cameras in the campus recorded it. So they cried rape. You look at the camera video, and it's like, wait a minute. I don't know if it was. But their way of getting back is every time they saw that person on campus in public, they cried out and yelled and accused them of things. So you know what happened? It became a Twitter feed. And once it went a Twitter feed, it became viral. So now all of a sudden this on-campus event has become something in the public foyer. And the person that was accused, future is in jeopardy. But the one that accused them is walking as a victim, watch this, until the full video came out.
Wow. Uh-oh.
And now the tide has turned. One of my favorite shows back in the day was Law and Order. The reason it was is because it was locked in on our TV by people who shall name nameless. I always knew what time it was because I would hear the dum dum. I'm like, yep, I know what time it is. I used to hear that thing in my sleep. I swear that if I ever got pulled over by the police, I would not hear it. I would hear dum dum. I knew deep down in my very soul that if I was ever in trouble, I would know when I walk in the door because I would hear dum dum. But needless to say, one of the episodes there had a young lady who cried rape. She went public with it. She went all news and everything, cried rape. Said these people attacked her in the woods near this house, frat house, and this, that, and the other. Had all the public on her side until the news media got wind of the video. It showed that she was not outside the frat house. She was in the frat house, and she was drunk. One of the statements that the officer said to her is, the media is on your side at this moment. If you don't get in front of this, they will turn. And when they turn, you will no longer have the support that you have, and they never forgive. And I realized that I said, wow, because the audacity, that's why I said the audacity of forgiveness is if you do it the right way, you'll never have to have the winds change and blow back in your face. But when you try to do these things publicly, what happens is you get destroyed. You get destroyed publicly, but you live privately. And at the end of the day, you begin to realize that maybe I should have done things a little differently.
Wow.
Therefore, the audacity of forgiveness intent is to be able to move beyond the pain and not add to the process. Forgiveness should never be vindictive, and it's never a performance, because forgiveness is about releasing the offender from the offense and living beyond it. Again, it's a process. Tell somebody it's a process.
It's a process.
See, the audacity of forgiveness is the ability to forgive without an audience, but it is so much more than that. The audacity of forgiveness will grant you an understanding that will reveal your transformation. Oh, man. See, forgiveness comes from that moment that you realize that what they did to you had to happen. See, this was the hardest part about it. When people say, wait a minute, you mean I had to go through that? Unfortunately, if you have faith in God and you look at where your life has become since then, you may begin to realize that had I not gone through that, I would never be where I'm at now. Oh, man. Oh, jeez, I felt that in my body. I felt that in my spirit. Listen, verse 3 says, Joseph said to his brothers, I'm Joseph. Does my father still live? But his brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed. Verse 4 says, Joseph said to his brothers, please come near me. So they came near. I'm sorry. Verse 5 is what I want to deal with. He says, but now do not therefore be grieved or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. Now, Joseph revealed to his brothers that they did not recognize him. Reason being is that they had not seen him in so long, and they did not expect their heinous act to lead to such great position. First of all, they knew he was dead. They told their father he was gone. They knew it. So they weren't expecting to ever see him again. But here he is in a position that they would have never expected. See, they knew he was sold into slavery, so they figured he was out there breaking bricks somewhere. Or if he was nowadays picking cotton somewhere. But he was not. Their heinous act, led him to a place that they never expected for him to be in. Not only that, they could not embrace the transformation. They could not understand it because they couldn't understand his dream. They didn't see the Joseph they put in the pit. They saw the Joseph that was second in command. They didn't see little brother Joseph with the robe of many colors. They saw Pharaoh. They didn't see the Joseph that they could push around and knock down on the ground and kick dirt at. They saw Pharaoh. They saw Joseph that if you touch him, what you touched him with is gone. They're going to cut your hand off. And they realized, okay, this dude is in power, and he has our lives in his very hands.
Yeah.
See, I can imagine them standing in awe at the sight of Joseph and how he had changed because of what had they done. They never expected to see him again, let alone that he would be forgiving them and blessing them as well. See, to them, they thought they had stopped him, but instead they propelled him. They sent him on a journey that would prepare him to open doors for them. Joseph, trying to get his brothers to embrace who he is, finally made it clear. God sent me here before you to preserve your life. He told them, you didn't put me in the pit. God did. Now, here's the thing that was crazy about this. You're talking to the brothers who physically threw you in the pit and telling them you didn't do it, God did. That doesn't even line up. When they know, wait a minute, it was my hands. I picked you up. So how you telling me God did it? Because he's telling them that even though you did it physically, it was God that instigated you to do it. And this is the hard part of walking in the life of Christ and destiny, to realize that some of the horrible things that have happened in your life were done for a reason.
My Lord.
Oh, man. It wasn't an accident that you went through what you went through. And this doesn't downplay it. It actually increases it, because then you look at it from a different perspective. You mean to tell me that I suffered through that for this? Because he called you for such a time as this. When you realize that God, because you may not, some of you may, I was talking to someone, let me put it out there. I was talking to someone who had been abused in their marriage, and people would say, why did you stay? They said, I stayed for the children. So what they were doing is they was taking the beatings to preserve the life of their children. But the children were angry at them because they were like, you should have left. And she said, if I had left, you would not live. Oh, y'all not hearing me. See, we got to realize that the things that we end up going through, our isolation, our ostracizing, our being removed, our abuse, our brutality, was not done by accident. It was intentional. It was intentional. It just so happens that the one that had done it wasn't bright enough to realize that they was an agent of God. That he was getting you to a place, and he was using them to get you into a position of saying that you don't have to go through this anymore. And forgiveness looks at them and says, listen, I know what you did to me, and my God, the old me would just want to just cut your throat right now. But the God that I serve, who is now leading me, is telling me that I understand that it happened for a reason. Some people don't even understand. They would have never known God had they not gone through hell. They may not have known God had they not gone through the experiences that they went through. They would have never come to God if they had not encountered what they had gone through. But praise be to God our Father, who made it clear that had we not gone through it, even Job said, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. We go through these things. We don't know it's always God doing it, but we go through it, and it leads us to the cross. And when we get to the cross and say, God, help me, because I can't do it by myself, he wraps us in his arms. And he leads us away from the cross. And at some point in our journey, he says, I want to show you something that you didn't know before. Yes. Oh, man. And he reveals to you that everything you had gone through before you said yes to God was leading you up to. He says the steps of the righteous are ordered by the Lord. It doesn't mean that you have to walk in righteousness before you start stepping. Some of the steps walk you to righteousness. You know? Oh, man. Oh, man. See.
Yes.
Lord have mercy. Ah. That's why the audacity of forgiveness will reveal to you the true purpose of the offense so that you can forgive the offender. There are too many people who've been carrying unforgiveness their entire life for people who will never see again. And yet they have stopped living because they want someone to do so long ago that even the person may not remember. We must learn to turn our whys into thank you. This can only happen when you gain an understanding of why you've gone through so much. Joseph did not come to this conclusion easily. He had to go through a lot of pain and rejection in order to find that moment where he could appreciate God for the things he had gone through. He wasn't in the pit. He wasn't in the pit forgiving his brothers. He wasn't in Potiphar forgiving his brothers. He wasn't in prison forgiving anyone. Matter of fact, in prison, he said, "Hey, can y'all tell Pharaoh to think about me? Because I'm here unjustly. I need to get out." Yeah. He said it there. So it made it clear he ain't forgave nobody. Mm-hmm. And if you can see, even at the moment that he started crying, he hadn't forgiven. Because he knew these were the ones. And the part of it welled up in him. That moment was like, man, I have the power to just, they'll never be seen again. Mm-hmm. They'll never be seen again. They came for him for help, man. It takes a lot to see the one that had done you wrong in a place where you can do them right. Y'all will catch that another day. See, the audacity of forgiveness will reveal such a great truth that you will find yourself completely overwhelmed at the things God has shown you. So when you realize that the actions of a few haters sent you into a place of greatness, you can only give God praise. I find that it is never those who are in support of you that will catapult you. Mm-hmm. Oh, man. See, we got it twisted. I speak about this all the time because I don't want you to be confused. You want to surround yourselves around those that have your back. But you also need to have Judas in the army. And here's the why. Because the people that have your back will never help you get where you got to go appropriately. Uh-oh. Now y'all looking at me funny. All right, watch this. See, can I break it down? Y'all good? Look, they like, hurry up. Tell your neighbor, hurry up. Hurry up. He says that those that will motivate you will never catapult you. Watch this. A catapult is a medieval weapon, a device that hurls stones, very large stones, towards an object, mostly walls or castles, at a high rate of velocity and over everything until it reaches its destination. It doesn't go through trees. It goes over them. It doesn't go through, it throws these stones high in the air and hits the wall. Mm-hmm. You know, it throws stones. It throws stones. Okay. Right. Mm-hmm. People that have your back don't throw stones. Mm-hmm. People that have your back don't throw stones. But see, a catapult is the machine that throws the stones. So if you find yourself in a position where you sit where the stone should be, those that have your back will never pull the trigger because they don't want to see any harm come to you. But if you got somebody there that wants to see your very demise and they don't want you to grow and you say pull the trigger, they ain't got a problem with it. But what they've done is they have catapulted you over everything that was hindering you, things that you couldn't see through, things that was stopping you, things that was holding you back for you to get to your destination where you could be because you may have been moving too slow and something had to happen. See, here's the thing. Joseph was called to lead, but Joseph didn't know that he might have been taking a few too many steps. And they put him in a pit and said, okay, and that catapulted him to Pharaoh. Oh, if you ain't know anything about the willingness of God, you better realize that you got to have somebody in your corner that's willing to pull the trigger. Tell your neighbor, pull the trigger. Because anyone who has your back will never do you harm. Therefore, they'll never fight. You will never need them in a catapult moment. They'll be like, you don't want to get in there. No, you don't want that. You need that one to be like, man, you ain't going to do this. You crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. You're not building on that. Yeah, but if you get yourself in there and be like, yeah, all right, you think I won't fire? Pull the trigger. Oh, because they're hoping you fail. They're hoping you fail. And what's behind you? Everybody got your back like, oh my God, Bishop. Oh my God, Bishop. But they got to watch this. They got to navigate through everything that you just went over. Just to catch up to you. Sometimes God will elevate you past the people that have your back and they can't see you because you've moved ahead. See, y'all looking at today's, God got me 2 steps ahead. But you can't catch up to me because I got to be up there building for your arrival. But I got there because somebody catapulted me. They started throwing stones. But they didn't realize I needed them to throw the stones because I needed a ride. Ah, my God. See, you got to your next destination. You think Uber had you. You better get a catapult experience. You better have somebody that has the heart enough to give you a ride. Climb up in that basket and tell them, I dare you to cut the rope. I dare you to pull a trigger. You think you want to stop me? Stop me. What did Christ do to Judas? He gave him a kiss and said, go do what you got to do. He was sitting in the catapult and said, go on, brother, pull the trigger. When you got somebody that you know in your face is telling you they have no good for you, tell them, well, pull the trigger. If they going to tell you that you ain't going to mount enough, tell them, well, pull the trigger. If they trying to stop you from being who you supposed to, tell them, pull the trigger. You better have a pull the trigger person in your mind, because if you can pull the trigger, they'll get you where you got to go. Joseph wasn't mad at what the brothers did. He gave God praise that they had enough audacity to pull the trigger. See, I feel it in my spirit. Because Joseph realized that if his brothers had not tried to kill him, he would never learn how to live. See, trigger, anything that has a trigger on it is designed to destroy you. But that which won't kill you only makes you stronger. You may hit that wall flat. But guess what? The momentum of you being thrown at it caused you to break through it.
That's it.
You need a hater to pull the trigger so you can get your breakthrough.
Yes.
Oh, because see, the people that got your back, they're going to lift you up and carry you. But the haters is the ones that's going to put you through a process. See, Christ would have never been beaten. Christ would have never been bruised. Christ would have never had that cross on his back, walked to Calvary. Christ would have never been nailed in his wrist and in his feet. Christ would have never been elevated as all of us. Christ would have never had the last 7 sayings. Christ would have never said, it is finished. Christ would have never been brought down and wrapped up in those burial clothes. Christ would have never been put in the tomb. And Christ would have never seen the stone walked away until Judas had pulled the trigger. Oh my God. If you don't have somebody that can initiate the process, then you can surround yourself around people that stay at the table preparing and planning but never initiate. You need that one person that ain't got time for you to sit there and put plans on the table. They're going to take the blueprints and start building. Tell somebody, I need a trigger man. I need somebody that has the willingness and the audacity to push me where I got to go. See, that's why I ain't got problems with them people that tried me over time. I like them. They kept my feet on the fire. And so when they come back and say, I apologize for what I did, please, I thank you for what you did. Because had you not been an idiot in your process, slow bus riding, short bus riding, they got 2 claims to catch. If you ain't been that, if you wasn't little or dumb, you would have never got me where I had to be. Y'all can't see those that know me. They caught the subliminal laugh. And tell somebody, if they weren't little or dumb, I wouldn't be where I was. Hey, God, that's somebody. Hey. I feel a shot down there. Tell somebody, thank God for little dumbs. See, y'all terrible. Y'all ain't saying. See, in the old church, they'd be like, thank God for, they wouldn't even realize. Even the dummy would have said it. Thank God for little. Wait a minute.
Glory.
Because in that very moment, what did I do? I forgave them. They ain't realize it. Oh, y'all's caught that. See.
Yes.
I feel a trigger mentality coming in this place.
Glory.
Tell somebody again, pull the trigger. If you know you need somebody to get you, push you to your next level, I need you to look somebody dead in their face with all sincerity and say, pull the trigger. Because you might be looking at that one person that has the willingness to say, oh, don't worry about it, baby. I got you. Pull the trigger. Bang. Wait, I wasn't ready. Oh, you said pull the trigger. So, I have to realize that. Also, we're on my last point, I think. Yeah, somewhere around there. So, the audacity of forgiveness will cause the offender to realize that it was God, not them, in order to save them as well. Verse 7 says, and God sent me before you to preserve a posterity for you in the earth, and to save your lives by great deliverance. So now it was not you who sent me here, but God, and he has made me a father to Pharaoh and lord of his house and a ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. The audacity of forgiveness gets you to a process of not only releasing and letting go and forgiving, but getting an understanding that makes the process of forgiveness easier. Because when you realize they did it because God said it had to happen, it comes from the most famous, I know the plans that I have for you. Plans, what it says, to prosper you and keep you safe. So he's going to put you in a position to prosper, but he's going to keep you safe in the process. Now, the key to this is, watch this. The key to this is that the reason he's saying prosper first is because in order for you to prosper, you have to suffer. But what you're going to go through in order to obtain that prosper is going to be painful, but it's going to you're still going to be maintaining safely. If he has said plans to keep you safe and to prosper you, then what he's going to do is put you in a safe place and then make you abundant. But when you look at Joseph's life, Joseph prospered in Potiphar. He wasn't safe. Joseph prospered in prison. He wasn't safe. It wasn't until he reached Egypt that he was safe. So he prospered before he was safe. Yes. So we have to realize that if we think that we're going to reach the level of prosperity that God has for our lives, but we have to realize that that's going to come first, and it's going to come through the pain. That's why we talked about catapult, because catapult is painful. When they throw stones, it hurts. Because people will start listening to that, believing these things, and they'll walk around doing these things, and they'll see you years afterwards. They'll be like, oh yeah, you was that dude. No, I was vindicated. No, you wasn't. I don't listen to that. No, they said you was innocent. That's fake news. No, man, what was said the first time was fake news. No, so what was said the first time was fake news. For example, watch this. I'm blow your mind. Watch this. So they've had this thing that's going viral over the last week about all these missing children, all these missing girls in D.C. They posted this video in this Facebook post up there saying all these girls disappeared in one day. And it went viral. And people just like, oh my God, there's 500 children being missing. And there's this ring of people taking these children. And the police said, no, that's not true. They said, we decided to use Twitter as an opportunity to bring exposure to hopefully find these young people. But the ones that they posted on the picture was people that had been kidnapped or lost or missing over the last 3 years. They all didn't go missing in one day. How do we know? If you look on the picture that they posted, one of them is Relisha Root, who disappeared 3 years ago. It's fake news. But now, why was it done? It was intended to draw attention to the fact that there was a lot of missing children in the area. But what they were saying is 99% of those that are missing are found. And a majority of those that they put out there that are missing ran away on their own. So they're really not missing, they left. So what they've done is they've created this firestorm of people wanting to jump on it. Because we run with emotions instead of walk with the truth. So when we run with emotions, we jump to conclusions, and all of a sudden it's like, free our girls, free our girls, free our girls. But at the end of the day, they had to realize that the person that did it was a black woman that works for the police department in charge of all those. She said, no, we was just bringing greater attention to those that are missing in order for people that may have seen them, but were not aware that they were missing. You understand what I'm saying? Because what happened is the truth is not as effective as what we can make it be. Truth is not more effective as what we make it to be. So at the end of the day, if God is going to prosper you, if God is going to put you in a position of greatness and success, you're going to go through hell. Because what happened? What catapulted Joseph? Not just a dream. Potiphar's wife. Y'all ain't hear me. Well, what got him into the place where he would even stand before Pharaoh? Potiphar's wife. The freak. Freaking digger. She thought she was on spring break. Husband was gone, the cats away, the mice will play. She thought she was doing something. She saw her young bucket was like, hey, come here. And he looked at her and said, not gonna happen. I serve my God. He's singing that my God is awesome. And she's sitting there like, yes, he is. And the Lord that blessed you, come here. He's like, you ain't even saved. Go on, you ain't even saved. You ain't even saved. But she had enough to accuse him. And that accusation catapult. That's why you can't fight when they accuse you. Be like, what you, man, please. I'm still laughing at half the accusations that's gone on about me. Oh, he did this, that, and that. Wow, I wasn't even there. It's amazing how many things happened in the city of Baltimore when I was having services in Harford County. It was beautiful. Yeah, he was here on that Sunday doing it. Wow, really? I have video of where I was. Didn't know I was out there. Because people will still throw stones because they don't have nothing else to do. But I thank God for it because it's free advertising. Mm-hmm. And why do I forgive them? Because it's a part of the process. I understand why they're doing it. Why? I don't understand them. I understand why they're doing it. Because I know God is leading them and using them to do it. Here's the funny thing. If you're haters and you're offenders, realize that they were agents of God on your behalf. They wouldn't do half the stuff they do.
I know that's right.
If they realize that the things that they're trying to stop you from doing, man, please. And then they sit there and they get the greater heights. Here's the amazing thing. I've had a lot of stories today. I don't know why. Here's the amazing thing. There was somebody that tried their best back in the day to throw a rock quarry of stones at me. They tried. They accused me of everything. And I used to sit there and was like, wow, I was never around for any of these things. And when my wife passed away, they had the audacity to spread this rumor that I broke up their friendship. And I had to laugh when I heard this. I was like, I didn't break up their friendship. They pitied them. They didn't want nothing to do with them. But they don't know that because they don't want to hear the truth. So recently they were gotten to a place where they were about to be elevated, and there were certain people that asked me to be a part of it and signed my name. I said, I'm not putting my signature on foolishness. And I told them, I said, you don't want me to come there. And they said, why? They said, because if I show up, my integrity will require me to tell you the truth. Do you really want to know the truth? I said, and this had nothing to do with forgiveness. I forgave them for what they had done because it didn't matter to me. But integrity says I still have to speak the truth if I'm questioned. I said, now if I come into the room and I sit there, the one person they're going to ask the questions of is me, because they know that integrally I'm going to tell them the truth. And I'm not going to sit there and hide from it. I'm going to have to tell the truth. Because even though it may hurt them, it's still the truth. Don't be confused. Integrity walks with forgiveness. So you can forgive someone, but it don't mean that you need to lie. Now you can fix it, but if they did it, they did it. It is what it is. So needless to say, they rescinded the invitation. I said, what happened? What's the matter? Why don't you want me to come? Why don't you want me to be there? Because they realized they would rather them go up with no integrity than go up with integrity. And that's the key. Because when you find yourself in a position that Joseph was in, you will find yourself testing people in order for them to be redeemed. That person could have been redeemed in an easy way if they simply allowed me to show up, and then they could have faced those questions and known the truth. And they would have been freed from it. Why? Because by the end of the day, they would have realized, wow, I had the wrong perception of him, the wrong opinion of him. And they would have said to me at the end, I apologize for all I did. No, you good. Because I forgave you from front. That's the audacity of forgiveness, the risk to forgive. But then you start to realize that the only reason you're there is because God allowed those people to have their heart hardened. God hardened Pharaoh's heart. Asked Moses.
Yes, he did.
So what we're seeing here is that the people that will try to keep you down, we don't even know. It doesn't even say in the scripture that God hardened the hearts of the brothers. It has nothing to do with it. It never said anything about God hardening the heart of the brothers. But we just know that they were there. But I believe God was in the heart of Judah because Judah said, no, we can't kill him. Just put him in the pit. I can't live with killing him. Isn't it amazing that the praise is the main place that said, don't kill the one that needs me. So at the end of the day, what they realized, what they understood was that at this moment when Joseph said to him, they realized, wow, you mean we did this for God? Yeah, because had you not, he would have stayed as a shepherd. He would have stayed with the brothers. He would have stayed reduced. He would have stayed under their thumb. And he would have never grown past that place and just simply been little brother Joseph.
That's true.
You still mad at family members because of what they've done. You still mad at friends because of what they've done. You mad at coworkers for what they've done and will carry that bitterness with you for a long time. But if you realize they did it for a reason, my family wasn't around for me. They weren't supposed to be. My family stopped me. They were supposed to, because you may not have realized the direction that you thought you was going down was not the right direction. And in their foolishness, even though it didn't make, they just trying to, no, they did it on purpose. Here's the thing. You can be mad at them for their motives, but when you realize God did it, you thank God for it. But the person that did, you mad at them because you know their motives wasn't godly in the first place. They trying to stop me. It don't make no sense. But at the end of the day, when you watch how they treat others, they're experiencing that regret a long time because they trying to fix what they couldn't fix in you and somebody else. Ooh.
Whoa.
But once you forgive them, all is well. Tell somebody, pull the trigger. All right, I ain't gonna forget that. So finally, the audacity of forgiveness requires you to forgive for not understanding once you have gained an understanding. Again, the audacity of forgiveness requires you to forgive for not understanding once you have gained an understanding. During the time of not realizing what you went through, because from the moment that the offense happened to the moment that the dream is fulfilled, Joseph had no idea why he was going through what he was going through. But when they put the ring on his finger, and nope, not even there. But when he's standing in this famine that he predicted, and he's measuring out grain to people that's coming for some, and he saw his brothers walk up. At that very moment, he realized they have to bow before me. Because if you know anything about Egyptian culture, you realize when they come up, they have to bow. So at the moment that they came before him, the first time to get the grain, they bowed before him. And what was his first dream? Bundles of grain would bow before him. What were they coming to get? Bundles of grain. And it what? Bowed before him. And he realized at that very moment, everything that I have gone through since that day was for this moment. Everything that I went through. And once he got that epiphany, once he got that revelation, once he got that understanding at that very moment, nothing else mattered. Forgiveness was in effect. See, you won't forgive until you understand. When you understand that what happened to you brought you to where you are, I watched a young lady, I taught this young lady, I watched this young lady watch her family, her parents die of drugs, and she slept on a mattress, didn't even have a box spring, slept on a mattress in a corner of a room in her grandmother's house in the hood. And she was determined to graduate high school. They didn't even have enough to pay for her tuition. But she went to high school. She graduated as a valedictorian in high school. She went on to do magna cum laude out of her school. She's in law school now. She spent a summer at Oxford. But all of this was a little girl who slept on a mattress in the corner of a room because she didn't let her circumstances stop her.
That's right.
And she looks back and now she's helping out other family members, and she's adopting children. She's doing these things because at the end of the day, she realized, I know what I went through, but I understand it. Because if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't be where I'm at now. You better realize that the things that you went through in your past were not there to stop you. They were there to strengthen you.
That's right.
But if you keep holding on, they did this to me and they did that to me, please. Because once you start walking that way, what you're doing is now you're taking it and doing it to someone else. Because when you realize someone did it to you, you say, well, they did it to me. That don't mean it's right. That don't mean that you need to do it to somebody else. But once you gain understanding, you forgive for not understanding. That's repent. God, God forgive me for not understanding. But now I know. Now I know that I needed them to pull the trigger. Now I know that I needed them to treat me that way. Now I know that I needed them to do that so I could be where I'm at. Thank God for them. Buy them a steak dinner. I'm not. I personally have forgiven them wholeheartedly. But I personally, in the mindset of Paul, don't want to see them again. Amen. But if they cross my path, there's a purpose for it. But if they don't, I'm all right. Amen, somebody. Amen. Because if they pop up to church, Lord have mercy. We're going to pray the blood over their lives and believe in it. Because I'm still walking in grace. Everybody standing on your feet. I caught that one. She said, hallelujah. I don't attend the Medea Methodist Church of God in Christ Incorporated, Holiness Sanctified Latter-day on the seventh day Episcopal Church and Synagogue and the Temple of the Eastern Star on the south side of Chicago, sponsored by Coke. Anyway.
Put that in the acronym, why don't you?
Try to put that on a business card. Wow. Audacity of forgiveness, again, is the willingness to take the risk to forgive. Why is it a risk? Because you never know if you are really ready to forgive. And forgiveness is a process. Because at the moment you say, I forgive you, you have to live it. That's why it's a risk, because now you have to live it. Because they may act a fool after the fact. I forgave somebody. You know they came right afterwards and did something else to make it look like we was cool.
Why?
Because they were slow. I lie to you not. Matter of fact, I mean, I can put them on blast and I don't care. I ain't going to put the name out there. But they did something. They did a lot of horrible things. We sat, had lunch. I forgave them. I said, man, we good. We all good. There was an event coming up that they were a part of, and I went to the event on behalf of someone else and didn't realize they were there. So I'm going through the line. I'm speaking to all the episcopates there, all the bishops and things, and he's one of them there. And I'm shaking the hands to all of them and greeting them, and some of them I'm giving the man, the bro hug. This Negro wraps around, kisses me on my neck in front of everybody else, and I'm standing there like,
Oh, really? What?
I pushed them off like, the heck you doing? They looking surprised. Everybody looking surprised because they knew that they expected me to ball up my fist and plead the blood over that heart I was going to take. But I pushed them away and I just gave them that look like, I just forgave you. That didn't give you permission to try no craziness. And even his brother looked at him like, what the heck you doing? So, I mean, afterwards, I pulled him up afterwards and I said, man, you confused. You confused. Forgiveness doesn't mean permission. He said, I thought we're not friends. We're never going to be friends. Because you don't understand limits. If you come to me and apologize for the behavior that you have, that got you in the hole that you in, and I told you I forgave you because none of that ever happened to me. Mind you, he never did anything to me at all, other than speak a whole lot of negative. Just because you spread rumors don't mean a thing to me. But for you to stand here in a public setting and do something like this to me, who you know is unacceptable, man, you'd have lost your mind. What you trying to do? Paint an image of these people that we cool? We not cool, and they know better. So what he did, he went back and sent a letter to all of his delegates and things and apologized to them for his behavior towards me, and his presumption. And what he ended up having to do was he had to actually expose even more than what he wanted to, because had he just shook my hand, he'd have been fine. But what he did beyond that, people was like, what was this? So, I ain't asking him to do it. He did it on his own. But that's the audacity of forgiveness, because the audacity of forgiveness is a process that not only must you live through, but the one that offended you has to live through as well, because they have to realize they've been forgiven. That doesn't mean they give them permission to do it again. And once they think that they can do it again, it's over with. Even Judas, after his offense, hung himself. He realized I don't have nothing else to do. Now, I'm not telling them to go hang themselves. What I'm saying is, if you've been forgiven of that offense, don't do it again. Don't try anything like that. Walk away. Move on. But you, as the audacity of forgiveness, must realize that you must forgive because you must understand that the reason that the things happen to you is because God planned it. And because God planned it, it's going to take you to the next level. It's never been accidental that what you've been through. Everything has been intentional. God is never accidental. God is intentional. And even the things that that allows you to go through before you know him or accept him as your personal savior were things that were setting you up so that you would. Amen? Come on, let's give God some praise.